line items. And I did not list each individual line item. It would have been an inch and a half thick. And so much of it right now is still unknown how it would break into those line items. But what I did is I had Julie take the function codes, and in those function codes I had her pull out what the expenditures were based on not based on the revenue that we were anticipating, so that you can see the change from one year to the next. And that's probably the most important thing to look at, in my opinion, from a board's perspective, is what's changed in the budget from one year to the next, because that alerts you to the fact, or the facts of what's happening in the budget, where the adjustments are being made and how things are being tweaked to run more efficiently. Obviously, if programs change, so does the budget. So if you see a big budget change, you can anticipate that there was probably some sort of programmatic change that caused it. If not, what was the cause of that change? So let me run down through it, because that way I'll make it easier for you. If you look, if I start at 111, which is elementary and intermediate building, right? You start there and you see there's a difference. And if there's a number in parentheses, that means that it's an increase for next year. So parentheses number is an increase for next year. And again, these are estimates. This is going to change. So if you look at the first one, $74,402, an estimate of an increase in the budget of the elementary and intermediate buildings, that's Title II money that's being held there right now as carryover. So how that money will flow into the budget will depend on a couple of different things, and one of them being how the state allows us to spend those dollars. So it's being held there right now. So that's what that money is. That's why you see a difference there. Where you see a number that's not in parentheses, that's where the budget has been reduced from one year to the next. So you can see again, if you look at the next one there, the junior high building sees a reduction in approximately $34,000. What's that from? Well, the teacher from the pool school that's coming over, Kathy Wardell, replacing Sue Schellenbarger, is a less paid teacher because she has less seniority. How much less? Well, approximately $34,000. So that's where you would see that type of a change come in. If you look at the high school building, the major change there, that is dual enrollment in CPE. This year we had very high numbers of dual enrollment CPE students. And this next year, we set the limit on dual enrollment in CPE students at 75, which has traditionally been about where we were. And by setting that at 75, it drives that much. Those kids don't go away, they still come to school, they're just different courses in school. Early childhood program, that's a program that Jen Maple is teaching. Great Start Readiness Program, and you can see there's some money there. That's carryover from the previous year that moves into that budget, which causes that one to be a little bit higher than it was in years past. Or a little less, rather, than it was in years past. This year we're spending the carryover. If you look at Title I, or if you look at special needs, there's a change there. A big part of that change is the difference between having B-roll back here and what we replaced the halfway through the year with branch spanking new teacher who makes much less money than they did for half the year. So that's what drives that change. Title I and at-risk, there's just less revenue coming in. I alluded to that when I spoke about the revenue assumptions that we're making, that there will be a reduction in federal dollars. That's the reduction in federal dollars. Vocational education, $163 is just a function of supplies. Oop, got a wiggle. Thanks, Eric. Adult education. You'll see there's a difference there, a big difference in what are we, well, not really, $7,400, big enough, I suppose. But the difference there is just we're being conservative until we know how much money we're going to get from the state. When we write our two adult education grants, one federal grant, one state grant, determine how much money we're going to get. So we're being a little conservative on how much money we think the federal government and the state government will funnel into our adult education program.
I have a question.
Sure.
Going back a couple spots to the Title I and Title II.
Yep.
Increases, is that going to affect our kids?
Absolutely. When you have less money, you have less money to put into those programs. So it does make a difference on what you're able to do. There's no doubt about it. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just the amount of money the federal government has chosen through whatever process they're using to funnel into education through their title programs. So you have less money, you do less for students. And we've seen reductions the last 2 years. This year will be the third year that we've seen reductions in title funds. Let's see, attendance secretary at the high school. A little change there. That little change is basically the insurance and retirement. Counselor's office, same type of thing. Part of that is billed to the athletic office now because we had this year, partway through the year, when the athletic part-time secretary resigned from the district. We did not replace her. We assigned athletic secretary duties to the guidance counselor secretary. So, and I did check into that with other districts. We, right now, with all of the districts in the RESD, we are providing more man hours and more support to our athletic program, and an athletic director and a secretary than anybody else. So, we're certainly not asking those two positions to do any more than what they're being asked to do anywhere else. It's just a sign of the times. Is it optimal? Not at all. You know, I mean, you can remember back, you know, most of us can remember back a lot of years when Gladwin had a full-time athletic director and a full-time athletic director secretary. And those days are long since behind us. We haven't had anything like that in probably 20 years. But you know, it is what it is right now, and it's the best that we can afford to do. If you look at school nurse, you know the change, I just talked about that, sharing the nurse with Beaverton.
I see that fluctuating as far as, like, say it's 15,000, but without talking to them, we don't know if that's really going to be yet.
Oh, I've already talked to them. I don't have it nailed down 110% yet, but I'm in the ballpark.
Now, will the nurse be here in the mornings and will it be the 2 in the afternoon?
Just depends on the schedule that we set up. It'll depend on the needs of the kids. Most of the time that the nurse spends in the district now is managing medications, especially for students with diabetes. So it will depend on what the needs of the kids are. If the needs of the kids would cause her to need to be here in Gladwin more often in the morning, then she'll be here more often in the morning. But because of the close proximity, she can make the drive. The school nurse has changed also in that most of what a school nurse does nowadays is provide training to other staff members that are providing services. So the school nurse might provide training to, say, a clerk or a secretary who's actually administering medication of some sort or another, whichever it is. Or it might be running a training for the building principals and their staff on how to use the automatic defibrillators. So the nurses serve in a more educational role for the staff now than they used to. It used to be if somebody got a bump on the head, the nurse gave them ice. It's not the case anymore. If somebody gets a bump on the head, Ellen Longford doesn't give anybody ice, right? Anymore. Now the school nurse has trained somebody else to do that type of stuff and how to recognize the signs of concussion or serious injury that may need medical attention.
So, of course, you know, the nurses is taking care of it, right?
Yeah.
Are we going to try this for a 2-year trial period or something?
No, we'll try it and see how it goes. If it doesn't work out after 8 weeks and it's just everybody's shaking their head frustrated, then we'll bag it and start something different. Yeah, we're not tied to it for any time. Out of respect to Beaverton, I would probably try to stick with it as long as possible because I wouldn't want to enter into an agreement and then jump ship on them right away. But if it just clearly couldn't work, then I think we would both realize that it would just
Somehow, sooner than a wall somewhere with it.
right. Moving down through there, you can see assistance for the district, change there. As our federal funds get less, we can afford to employ fewer assistants. A lot of our title funds are used for assistants or paraprofessionals in classrooms providing support to kids. And Kelly, answer your question, how does it change things for the kids? Well, a lot of the support that we provide in the form of paraprofessionals is paid for the title funds. The title funds are federal funds, so it's the issue there.
Is that what that assistance, 219 there?
Yep.
Because
Below
that actually went up. I mean, basically, we have to spend more about a month for it.
That's what it means. Yep. Title I coaches and professional development, those are the folks that we use to provide support to the teachers as part of Title I. Sue Cameron is a coach here. Lori Allen is a coach along with April Menema at the elementary and intermediate level. We see some changes in there. Part of the change is less revenue from the title funds coming in. Part of the change is being caused because we're switching coaches. Lori Allen's going back in the classroom. Kirsten Hale is going to come out and be the math coach at the school. Lori was ready to get back into the classroom, and that was the deal we made with her when she became a coach. Is that she, after a couple of years, decided to go back into the classroom. She's been in 3 years. She's ready to go. She will. Instructional technology, you can see a change there, and it's a significant change. And the reason is because our Title VI, which is again federal money that we get for technology, is way down. So it's not down quite as far as what it shows on that line item because technology money does bounce back into the budget in another place, which if you look down at that line item, function code 284 rather, and you'll see that there's a change where we bump that up. And if you look at it, you can see where it's been bumped up about what it's been bumped down in the Title VI. So the dollars that we're spending on technology are staying relatively constant, it's just coming from a different pool of money.
Is that taking account like any grants that we can get or?
If we can get them, but there, you know, that's a fallacy really. There aren't people lining up to throw gazillion of dollars at schools to buy computers. You know, there are a few grants here or there that you can write, you know, to different places to get a computer for this or for that, but as far as, you know, monster grants, if you have a local,
Microsoft or the IBM.
if you have a local foundation, you can go to them certainly and see if that's something that we support. The schools have done that, where there are foundations that we support those things, or if there are large businesses that would support that, then perhaps they would have a grant access. But the RESD explores those grant options for us, and there aren't as many as what people sometimes are meant to believe. It's not to say there aren't any, but they're certainly not out there really. Let's see. School board expenses. That's not money that you guys get, sorry.
I was gonna say, what happened to that?
Where am I raised at then?
But in that are things like legal fees, if we run an election, audit fees that we pay, dues that we pay to organizations, or other fees that we pay to those organizations for lobbying and things like that, although we don't pay much for lobbying, it's rolled into, it's usually part of a professional organization. If you belong to Michigan Association of School Boards, they have a lobbyist that tries to work with the legislature on behalf of all the school boards in the state of Michigan, so you as a local board don't spend dollars on that. If you look at superintendent office expenses, same thing, it's got everything from my salary, Julie's salary, the ladies that Eileen and Diana, the supplies that we have, all of that stuff is wrapped up into that line item. You can see that staying relatively the same from what year to the next, going down $662. So not a big change there. Principal's offices stay about the same. Again, all of their secretaries and clerks that they have in their offices, as well as all their supplies are under function code 241. Central office staff and district expenses, again, those are where dollars come in for Arlene, Diana, and Julie, and all the things that we do, whether that be mailing, or whether that be the start of the school year, big meeting that we have some expenses that go along with that. So those types of things are in there. You can see that's gone down a little bit too. It's gone down $2,500. Workers' compensation, that's gone up. It always does. Building maintenance, you can see is staying pretty close to the same. It's going up a little bit, and the reason it is because we will have some increased insurance costs with our maintenance staff and returning for in that function code. So that's where that little bit of increase comes from. Transportation, same thing, an increase in insurance and retirement for the drivers, and $30,000 more in there for fuel next year. Anticipating fuel prices will continue to go up as they have.
So is that taking account for the bus?
Nope, there's no new buses in there.
So in this budget, that there's no cost?
Nope. Nope. And the reason I don't do that is because if I do, and I show a deficit, then going in with that deficit, if you want to add things to the budget and move into deficit, that's the board's prerogative, but I bring to you the first look, balance. And then you tell me what you want to do from there. If something, if you say, well, I don't think we can do this, or I think we should do that, then we can talk about it and add it if it's something you think that you want to do. Staff training, technology, we talked about the technology piece already. Staff training, you can see, is we reduced that by $9,000. Summer rec program stays the same. Title I, again, stays the same. Just the parent involvement funds. Even though our federal dollars are going to go down, the amount that we spend on parent involvement tends to stay pretty steady because we think that's a big piece of what Title I is supposed to do. Let's see. No, I don't think it'll be gate receipt reductions. It will be spending less money on football. This year they spent almost $15,000 on football, and we're not going to do that every year. This is just an odd year because they have so many equipment needs with needing to bring all the helmets back up to speed, so we won't need to do that. Sorry, John.
And the athletic association is doing a great job too, raise lots of money. So, we've got things that we can talk about there as well, as far as other ways to make money too.
Homeless students, same next year as it is this year. Indirect costs for federal programs. There's a little shift in there, we're not really getting any more money, but there are some changes in how we can code some of those expenses. So because Julie and Marcine work most closely with the Title I consolidated application, some of their salary can be charged to function code 661, so that's what that shows you. So at the end of the day, what does it all mean? Well, I told you earlier, it means that the budget for all practical purposes is within $1,194 being balanced, if all of this worked out just the way that I had explained it. The likelihood of it all working out, just as I have explained it on this piece of paper, is relatively small, if not impossible. Yeah. It will change, could change for the better, could change for the worse. But so could any of those assumptions that are out there. And, you know, what assumptions might change? Well, we have to go to the bargaining table with our teacher group this year. And when we bargain contracts with the teachers, if the board bargains with them and gives them a raise, for each 1% raise that we would give to our employees, it would cost $72,600. So if you start with a balanced budget right now and give everybody a raise of 1%, you're now running $72,600 in the hole, based on what we're looking at right now. You can also, I look at teacher step increases. Teacher step increases are $85,500. So if we bargain with teachers and teachers receive step increases, then that you go into deficit another $85,500. If you decide that you think you should purchase school buses, and there's always a need for school buses. You could buy school buses constantly; they wear out. A school bus is almost $90,000, so if each bus you buy, you add $90,000 to a potential deficit, basically. So, you know, at this point in time, would I add any of those things to the budget? I wouldn't. I would look at what you've got right now based on the assumptions that we've made, move forward with approving a budget so you can have it approved in time to meet the legislative deadline for it, and then amend it as necessary, which is what we do anyway. And, you know, if revenue changes, you do some budget amendments. And if revenue goes up, you have the ability to afford some things maybe you didn't think you could afford before. And then we talk about what do I think the district needs are as far as priority, and I try to, you know, convince you that those are the things we need to do, and you try to talk with me about it, and at the end of the day, we decide whether or not we do it. What are some major needs that are out there? Certainly buses are a major need. We definitely need to be looking at purchasing buses. Curriculum and materials, I think we're in pretty good shape. There's some stuff that I'd like to do curriculum-wise, and we talked about it with math at the high school. And if we had some money, it would be nice to be able to do this. It's not huge expenditure, but it would be nice if we had some money, about $10,000, $12,000. And if the revenue turns on that, maybe that's something that we can afford to do.
What about that scholastic stuff?
That's not a high priority. There's some workarounds that they've already put in place. So if you're trying, that's a good question.
What about the social studies program at the junior high? Remember we were talking about that, how assessment was just so low?
Oh, they have a new program at the junior high.
So that's already been.
Yeah, that was probably 3 years ago, I believe. Time escapes me, but I think it was 3 years ago that we purchased an entirely new social studies curriculum for the junior high. History Live is what it was called. Just before you, how long you been on the board?
3 years.
Okay, so just before you got here, so 3 years. So that's not a big. That's not a. The curriculum and instruction-wise, we're in pretty good shape. I don't see huge expenditure needs there. Yep, the Sparks grant did not get reapproved for the RESD, so that program will not be operating. Well, it depends on who you ask. The money was allocated to other places you know, when they had a set amount of dollars to allocate to Sparks programs, they judged the grants based on where the need is the greatest, and it was determined that the need wasn't the greatest here anymore. It was that the money was needed someplace else. Probably went to more urban schools and like that that are struggling more than we are.
If you listen to the media, that's what basically the inner city schools where the voters are, you know, development area.
I don't know if that's true.
And I don't, you know, I mean, it just from what I've read, newspapers and whatnot.
It got allocated someplace else other than Middle Michigan. all of the grants, all of the Sparks grants in our entire region.
What does that run, like, to run Gladwin Schools program?
What is, oh, I'd have to go back and figure it out.
A guesstimate.
If I had to guess, oh, I'm
Gonna get spotted.
over $500,000.
No. Just for Gladwin.
It's not cheap
No, I
program.
guess not.
No, that's just since they were providing busing and everything in the summer.
Yeah, transportation, you know, it was a big expense, it was a big grant.
When I first got involved with that, I thought, this is a lot. You know, we're sitting here babysitting kids after school, we're thinking around, you know. But then, you know, working with the kids every week, I developed a little classroom of kids that like to be in my room. And I'm telling you, you see the difference.
Oh, absolutely. My daughter has some special needs that she has as far as food deficits, and we had her go to Sparks, and we're kind of impressed about her not being around because the summer Sparks I think really helped her, and she's going to junior high next year, and they were going to have it at the junior high, so it kind of would alleviate also that
Each
issue
of the
of the
buildings
transfer.
have it.
You know, so because she was all excited that she would get to spend a couple weeks in the junior high before everybody got there. So yeah, we're impressed about it as well.
So they're
Program
stuck
really well
to
for her.
2 weeks this summer, and then the rest of it is this fall.
Yeah.
So anyway, if if the budget swings and there's a large enough change in revenue or a big enough shift in expenditures that we end up having more money than what we anticipate, probably not gonna happen. But if it's big, we would sit down and we would prioritize some areas that the board and I can agree are areas that we should increase our expenditures.
But that could be one of the choice items again.
Oh, anything could be. It's an open door. You start to talk about it, you see what,
You know, how many kids come or go to school here to be able to participate in the program.
right. You have to look at all that, the big picture. The likelihood of our budget swinging enough to support something like that is frankly zero. But there are some things that could change that could make some changes in what we're doing as far as how we move forward next year. But they won't be changing in that magnitude, I think. So there it is. There's your second look at the budget. We looked at it once before. Now you can see, for those of you that haven't been through this with me, now you can see it starts to get a little more real. The numbers become a little tighter. They're still not perfect, and there's still lots of room for things to change. But usually, this is about as tight as we can get it before we have to approve it. And I would entertain any questions that you folks have on it.
Why is our meeting in June, not till the 17th?
Because I'm going to be gone. Yeah, I had a chance to take a short vacation with the family, and that's the only time that we could go. So I asked Sally if I could do that, change that meeting, so we change it to
So
the
we're going to have
17th.
meetings the 17th and the 24th.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm gonna do a two-day hospice training on the 17th and 18th, so on the 17th, I may be a little frazzled that night, but go from that to here, so, hey.
So we're not, then we won't be meeting on the 10th.
Exactly. Yeah, the 10th will be canceled. If everything goes according to my plan, that's actually the best plan. If everything goes according to my wife's plan, we will be in Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge area. I've never been there. We will see. So we're pretty excited
We
about
just
it.
came back.
Yeah. and
Okay,
then
that's our-
West Virginia.
That's our summer trip.
They're only 8 miles apart from each other, so you're actually probably see both.
Oh, perfect.
It's literally 8 miles apart.
Be a lot of stuff for the kids to do based on what I was able to see online.
Oh, yeah. Take lots of money.
But, yeah, no big camping trip this summer. We're gonna stay home, so we thought if we could sneak away for 4 or 5 days and do this, we could do it right after graduation, and then get back and get back to workers. We could get it done, so.
Go to the party. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure, probably, my daughter's big into that kind of stuff, so.
And if you come anywhere near Sweetwater, Tennessee, which isn't too far, then go to the underground sea.
Let's see.
The second largest freshwater lake, underground freshwater lake in the world. The biggest one is in Africa, and the next one is here. And they walk you through the cave, and they put you on pontoon boats.
Really?
And they take you out into this lake, this underground lake, and they have it lit under the water, and there's a blind fish in it, you know, they're huge. And then they say, now, we're gonna turn off the lights, don't anybody move. You'll find out how dark is when you turn it on. It's
We
like,
can feel it.
you
Feel
can't
dark, it's dark.
see anything, I mean, it's just gone. It is something, but
Yeah,
it's
it
a
is.
huge lake.
But that's why, Kelly, because
Yeah.
I'm gonna be checking out blind fish.
If you
and-
get plans, though, you know,
I
Nah,
agree with that.
That's a long way.
So that's
something
the
to
reason
see.
for that's the reason we say, Julie made all the necessary recommendations today, so she's going to go with that.
Yeah,
Other questions?
so wait and see with the bill.
It is, yep, we'll wait and see if we hear anything, between now and the 17th as far as revenue. That's really the biggest piece of this puzzle. The expenditures are what they are at this point, based on our best estimations, and they're pretty good estimations. So revenue is revenue. We'll see what the governor comes up with here, what our legislative folks come up with the governor, and then we'll make the changes
Any
there.
idea how close they are with that?
Well,
Still-
yeah, I would expect something by, well, they've been pretty good about it. I can't complain. They've been pretty good about it the last year. I would expect by, second week of June, we might have a pretty good idea what the revenue looks like. So there could be some tweaks to this by then. If there are, you'll see the tweaks on the revenue side. And then, I'll probably, leave expenditures relatively alone. I may tweak a few things on expenditures and highlight it for you just based on some things that are pretty, buses are a big thing that everybody would agree we need to do, so if there's a big enough change to support that.
Buses got pretty much scrapped this one.
There's a couple of them. So, we'll see. But I'm very comfortable with where we are right now. I mean, that's always the big question, is how comfortable are you with the budget? I'm very comfortable with the budget where it is right now. I'm very comfortable with where we are financially right now. I don't, I don't see any real major issues out there. We're flexible enough and we're financially well enough off right now that we take advantage of swings in the district that happen naturally, as opposed to having to do big layoffs or having to do major program cuts and those types of things. So our budget is operating exactly the way that it should. It adjusts itself based on normal attrition of staff. It's done that. It's done that right now for the last 3 or 4 years, which is exactly how we hope it works. So I have really no major concerns about anything that we're doing or how we're putting this together right now. I think we're going to be in okay shape. The biggest problems are, the biggest problems you have to face is with no raises and no steps in this budget. If you choose to give those things to any of the employee groups, you just have to understand that. It creates a budget deficit unless the revenue should come in to support them. And I'm not telling you that you should or shouldn't do that at this point. Those are discussions for the negotiating team to have with me as we work through that process. But I am telling you that those costs are very real, and those costs are very recurring. So anytime you incur labor-related expenses, you know from our conversations in the past, those labor-related expenses stay and come back the next year, and the next year, and the next year. They tend to increase geometrically as opposed to in a linear fashion. And that's how you can get into trouble in a hurry. We are not in trouble, and the reason we aren't is because we have been conservative operating in that arena, and I would suggest that right now we continue to be that conservative because it has worked out well for us. There are a lot of schools, I've made this comment, many places now when I've gone and worked with other school districts in their budgets is there are lots of places in Michigan that would love to have our problems. And we continue to be in very good financial shape. Is it a panacea, of money? No, not at all. But we're certainly not going through the pain that we went through 6, 7 years ago when we really had some major budget problems out there. We've come through those, and the plan that we put in place back then continues to work today, just the way that it was designed 6 or 7 years ago. And that's good news for us.
Absolutely, expecting the point of this time.
Yeah, we're not
School
going.
done.
Pretty scary stuff. Pontiac, LBM, there's a lot of schools in trouble right now.
what's the, I guess, the general feeling about that with the teachers? I mean,
Who knows? I mean, that's something that we sit down and talk with them about. We have enjoyed, extraordinary labor relations with all of our groups over the course of the last several years. So, you know, we'll sit down, we'll talk about it, we'll see what we can do. We'll educate one another, meaning, you know, they provide us with information, we provide them with information, and we look for a solution that everybody can live with. You know, I couldn't guess how that will turn out. You never can, that's why you go through the process.
right.
It's been good.
And the teachers, the union, their negotiators asked, could we not drag it out? Could we possibly do like a marathon bargaining session instead of having, you know, meeting